Hello everybody, my name is Benji and welcome back to Satisfactory. Today is going to be a little bit different compared to some of the normal stuff we do for Satisfactory, because today we're actually doing a tutorial. So it's been a while since I did anything revolving around Orange Heaven, and as I'm sure many people are aware, Orange Heaven is one of the projects, if not the project, that I am the most proud of in this game. This is one of the best things that I've ever done. So I haven't done anything with it for a while, and I wanted to revisit it today. So today I'm going to be walking you through, step by step, the entire process of making fuel from oil. In one of the most efficient ways, if not the most efficient way, in the game currently. This process has two methods. Number one we're using here, and that's the packager method, which requires these packager loop-de-loops here with the empty canisters. These can be unlocked as soon as you get the alternate fluid transport in the hub at tier 5. The other method requires a blender, which is unlocked in bauxite refinement in tier 7. Both methods are going to actually require you to get some alternate recipes from hard drives in the MAM, which can be found all around the entirety of the world. For this tutorial video, I am going to be basing each system off of 150 crude oil coming in, because this is going to give the best numbers in terms of machines and clock speed. If anything needs to be overclocked or underclocked, it only needs to be done so by a multiple of 1/3, if at all. So we're going to start off here with the packager loop method, method number 1. This is going to require alternate recipes for heavy oil residue and diluted packaged fuel, which I will go and show you right now, those two alternate recipes. That's a blender, not a refinery. So the first one that you're going to need is the alternate heavy oil residue, which takes oil, turns it into heavy oil residue, and polymer resin. The second alternate recipe you're going to need for this method is the diluted packaged fuel, which requires heavy oil residue and packaged water. Hence, everything revolving around a loop of packagers. In order to start out the system, since we have 150 oil coming in, we are going to need a couple of refineries that actually make the heavy oil residue. We're going to need 5 of them, because each of the refineries making heavy oil residue requires that 30 oil. So you're going to want to place these 5 down in whatever orientation you would like, whatever order you would like, and then you're going to pipe them together. A helpful tip for piping together refineries is to place it just in front of the actual pipe output. Run your pipe, this is for the heavy oil residue by the way, straight down the line, and then you can place these pipe junctions up on top, like this, and connect the pipes into those junctions. I have the smart mod installed currently, so pay no attention to this if you do not have the smart mod. If you do have the smart mod, go on ahead and do exactly what I just did for those, and if you don't have the smart mod, go install it, because it's an amazing mod. Now, the one issue with this system that a lot of people have issues with, myself included, is the polymer resin byproduct. You need to make sure that that polymer resin byproduct is used, or else it will back up the system when it stacks to 200 inside of the machine. So you can use that in refineries, or you can sink it like I'm about to do. Just like that. Just like that. Or you can take that and you can actually make a whole bunch of stuff. You can take the polymer resin and use it in the fabric. You can take it and use it in residual rubber or residual plastic as well. Of course, we don't really need that right now. Over at Orange Heaven, we are using the polyester fabric in order to make gas filters, but you can do with the polymer resin whatever you would like. For now, go on ahead and keep piping all of these together. Once you have all of the heavy oil residue refineries piped together in a manner much like this one, if you want to expand the system, obviously you can do that. I would recommend still doing it in modules of 150 oil, so modules of 5 refineries for heavy oil residue. But once these are all placed down, you're going to need another row of refineries. This one is going to be for the diluted packaged fuel. So you are not only going to need the actual refineries and pipeline for the heavy oil residue, you're also going to need the belt line for the packaged water, which is going to be in a loop that we'll get to eventually. Right now, you just need 7 refineries. Technically, it's 6.6, because each of these requires 30 heavy oil residue. Each of these produces 40. So do some quick math here. 5 times 40 is 200. 200 divided by 30 is 6.67. So the last refinery over there, or if you want to make this one the last one, is going to need to be underclocked to that clock speed right there. After that, all you need to do is connect these to the power, pipe them all together, and connect a belt ready to go for the water, which I'm going to go on ahead and do and let you do as well. If you set this up in the exact same manner as you did these ones, and in the exact same adjacent row, all you need to do for the pipe is connect it like that, and it'll be a nice 90-degree angle, which is exactly what we love to see in efficiency games like this. Note that if you're running one of these systems on its own, you're going to need a 400 line of water coming into the system. That means 400 packaged water will be on this belt, meaning it cannot be a Mark III belt, as the Mark III belt can only handle 270 items per minute. So you need at least a Mark IV belt in order to run this system properly if you do it all on one conveyor belt like this. If you do it on multiple conveyor belts, they could technically all be Mark Is, except each machine requires 60 packaged water per minute, so you would need to have 6 and a little bit Mark I lines at the same time. Now, what we are going to do is come over here and start working on the actual packager loop portion of this. Each of these produces 60 packaged fuel, and luckily for us, each of the packagers unpacks fuel at a rate of 60 per minute. And also lucky for us, each packager packages water at a rate of 60 per minute, which is coincidentally exactly what we need in here. So what we're going to need to do is connect ourselves a merging line. That merging line is just going to go the entire way down if I didn't put a power pole directly in its pathing. And you don't have to do this part exactly like this. If you really wanted to, you could do the exact same thing as this, or you could just run these lines directly into the back of the packagers. It does not matter which way you choose to do it. You can do it whichever way you would like. Now, unfortunately, the smart mod does not work with the packagers. So if you are a smart mod enthusiast like myself, I am very regretfully informing you that that will not work. I'm also regretfully informing myself that I don't have enough materials for that, and there's an autosave. So we will be right back. At this point, you're going to have the fuel portion of this completely set up. So you will have all of the fuel being made, and then the fuel comes out of these packagers. You can connect yourself a pipeline in the exact same manner as we've done in the other steps of the system, and that fuel line can run to wherever you want it. We'll talk about some uses for fuel toward the end of the video. However, you're not done with the system yet. You actually still need the water. The water portion of the system is the exact same as this system. And I'm going to show you that you can actually do exactly this as well. You don't need to run the merging line coming all the way across and then back the way around. You can actually just have the belts going straight from one machine to the next machine to the next machine. I preferred to do it the other way with the long belt wrapping around so that I could have a buffer over at Orange Heaven, but I only did that loop method for the packagers. I ran these machines straight into the packagers. Now, since the packagers and refineries are a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, one of these is still going to need to be underclocked. In that case, for the water, that is going to be this one. Just like that. And all the rest of these can be packaged water. All you'll need to do from this point is choose your method of belting everything together for the water, and just send the water back around the system, around the side, and finally into the back of these. I can show you the system in work over at Orange Heaven, so I'm not actually going to hook up the rest of this with the water and everything else. That is the entirety of Method 1. There's nothing else about this. I would personally recommend using a row of 15 of these, which would be 450 oil coming in, because that doesn't require any underclocking at all. Instead of having one of these underclocked, you can actually just have a row of 20 of these making the diluted fuel, and then 20 packagers unpacking the fuel, 20 packagers packing the water, and then you are completely and entirely done from there. So it's a little complex, it's a lot of machines. That's the downside to the system. The upside to the system is you can get it as soon as you get to Tier 5 and get the actual packagers unlocked and get the diluted fuel alternate. As soon as you have all of that, the system is ready to go. The downside is the complexity, the upside is how early you can get it, and the fact that it requires less power than the blender system. But I said I would show you both, so let's go look at the blender system. You may be wondering why I have not gotten rid of these 5 refineries making the heavy oil residue, and that is because the blender system starts in the exact same way. You take 150 crude oil, turn it into the 5 refineries, and sink or use the polymer resin, and you're good to go. That is it. After this, there's one more step involving the blenders, so this is arguably easier. Now, the alternate recipes you're going to need for this method are the heavy oil residue, the same one as before, and then the diluted blend fuel alternate for the blender, which I will go and show you right now. The diluted blend fuel is this one right here. It takes 50 heavy oil residue in the blender and 100 water to 100 fuel. So the extra added bit of convenience to this is the fact that you don't need to package any water whatsoever. The only thing that you need to do is connect heavy oil residue and water into the blenders, and you are good to go after that. Now, each of these 5 is going to require 4 blenders. So it's going to take up roughly the same footprint, just because of how large the blenders are, as the packager and refinery loop. It's actually going to take up a little less for just these 5, but on a larger scale, it would require much more. The added complexity coming from this piece is the fact that we are going to need Mark II pipes in order to get the 400 water line, or you could use the Mark I and have 2 water lines and 2 fuel lines. The best part about this, in my opinion, is the fact that there's no packaging or belts required other than the polymer resin. The only thing that's required for the blenders are pipes. And that is also great because you can do the same method, roughly the same method, as you do for refineries. The only difference is the fact that now there's 2 pipes instead of just 1. So you take each of the 2 pipes. One of these is going to be water, so I'm going to do a Mark II belt, just to make it a little easier on myself, and for the convenience of the video to not make it forever long. And then the Mark II. And then you do the exact same method as you did, but twice, on 2 different layers. And that will work the exact same way. So I'll go on ahead and get this set up and ready for demonstration and hook up the water. and you'll see just how efficient this system is. Then I'll head back over to Orange Heaven and show you how effective the packager loop is, and then we'll talk about some other interesting facts about all of these systems. With everything set up, it should look something along these lines, with the 2 pipes on the back, the 1 pipe at the front going to wherever you're going to need it, and that is the entirety of the system. So at this point you connect in your 150 oil, which goes from 150 oil to 400 fuel, so you are more than doubling your system. You're actually almost tripling the amount of fuel to oil that you get out of this entire thing, which is impressive considering the other recipes that you have just making straight up fuel is 60 to 40, so you're actually losing fuel in the heavy oil residue and still getting the polymer resin byproduct anyway, which is awful. And I'm really sorry, but for some reason my blender textures are glitched and don't actually work properly. I still do not know why this is, but the animations are a little glitched. But you can see that we already have fuel flowing, and the system has barely been started for as long as I can actually talk about the system. Now, the downsides to this method are the fact that you need to get to tier 7, which requires a lot of space elevator parts in the tier 5 aspect, such as the adaptive control unit and the modular engine. The adaptive control unit being the worst of those two because it requires the computers, the heavy modular frames, and the circuit boards, which are all tier 5 and 6 related items. And then it's also a little bit of a downside because the actual cost of the blender is aluminum casings and radio control units, which radio control units are a very complicated tier 7 item, revolving around computers, crystal oscillators, and aluminum casings. Aluminum casings are super easy with the new bauxite stuff. Might do a video about those later. And then the alternate recipe takes computers out of the mix, keeps the crystal oscillators, and adds in some other oil-related items. Which isn't the best in the world, but it's also not terrible. And it looks like here the system is working pretty effectively. We had a net plus 400 there for a second. It'll probably go back up to it at some point soon. It shouldn't really be draining. I don't really know why it's draining at all. I wonder what would happen if I put a valve on here. There we go. Let's see if that does anything good for us. That drain rate should go to 0, and that net should go way up. Oh yeah, there it is. So as you can see, this system works. It is much more compact in comparison to the other one, but on a larger scale, it's going to take up more and more space. It is a little bit more complex in terms of the items required to build the blenders, but it is much, much less complex in terms of the actual fuel system, and it doesn't require any sort of empty canisters at all as well, which is a very, very big plus in my book. But with all of that covered, I'm going to head back over to Orange Heaven, and we'll talk about some other ups and downs of each of these systems. Alright, now that we're back over here at Orange Heaven proper, and I can show you guys that the factory and the system for the packager loop does in fact work. We've got the tripled up system here. I showed the one that was these first 5 right here. With the 150, whereas in this system I've got 15 running off of a line of 450. Same thing happening right over there. I had to double the system because I've got 900 oil coming in. But the polymer resin goes off and does its own thing. The heavy oil residue comes around the side just like in the system I showed you. And then the packaged water comes in on these 3 lines here. On the other side, while we traverse over, you can see that I have the belts going straight into packagers, they go off into the pipes that go over to Orange Heaven itself versus Orange Heaven the factory. And then the empty packages have this little buffer system loop right here, which is currently empty. I should probably put more into the system just in case, but it also looks like it's pretty fine. It's about how it's supposed to be. But you can see all of the packages moving and grooving. All of the pipes have their flow rates moving and grooving as well. Same with the water pipes, the empty packages, and the water. And then the water goes along these 3 lines here, 2 280, or 1 240 and 2 480 lines going straight across. And after this autosave is finished, I will talk about some downsides of each system. Those autosaves take a while. So the first downside to the packager loop system is obviously the complexity of the system itself. It's a lot of machines. You've got all of the machines you need for the heavy oil residue, and then more than that for the diluted packaged fuel, and then twice the diluted packaged fuel in terms of the packagers and unpackagers, which is absolutely ridiculous. You've got belts, you've got pipes, you've got overflows, you've got management, you've got buffer systems, you've got all sorts of different things going on in the system that make it almost unnecessarily complex, except for the fact that it is necessary for the system to run properly. So that's a pretty huge downside in terms of that. The upside to the system is the fact that you get it pretty much with Tier 5. Like, Tier 5, unlock basic oil production, and then beeline straight to the packaging and the alternate alternate power, whatever it's called, to get the generators, and you're good to go at that point. You've got the fuel, you've got a system, it's easy to do, and you can set it up. It's just a lot of machines, a lot of belts, a lot of pipes, and a lot of hours. Orange Heaven itself probably took me about 15 total hours to do, about 10 for the factory itself, and an extra 5 for the fuel generators over there. So be wary about the amount of time this is going to take you. The downside of the blender alternate recipe, the blender version of this system, is the fact that the blender requires tier 7 items to construct and a lot of power to run. Each of these takes 75 megawatts to run, whereas with this system, these take 30, and I believe these take 10? Yes, these take 10. So it takes less power to run the packaged fuel than it does the blender system for the same amount of fuel in the output. So that's the downside to that one. The upside is the fact that it's a lot less machines, no belts with the exception of the polymer resin, and it's super easy to do. So those are the downsides and upsides covered, the tutorial covered, and almost everything I wanted to talk about covered. The last thing that I want to talk about are some uses for the fuel. Now, personally, I think turbo fuel is a complete waste of time, effort, coal, and sulfur. Fuel itself is perfect. I'm taking 900 crude oil here and turning it into 30,000 megawatts of power. Granted, that's 200 fuel gens, but still. You really don't need turbo fuel. If 900 oil can go to 2,400 fuel and power this many generators, you don't need turbo fuel. Because turbo fuel is going to take this, add compacted coal to it, and get you a little bit of a more efficient system. A little bit more efficiency out of your fuel. So you could technically do that and make this system better. But this system's already so good. Why would you ever feel the need to do that? I don't understand it. So I don't understand it. I don't recommend doing turbo fuel in the slightest, but it's something that you can do. Or you can do exactly what I did right here and just toss it straight into fuel generators. And then at that point, you're good to go. There's my little system down there that I use for the polymer resin making me the gas filters. So that's proof of concept for that as well. But that is all that I had for you today, all of you lovely people. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed, because I know I did. Orange Heaven was one hell of a project to work on. Doing a tutorial to help other people build something similar to Orange Heaven. I hope somebody takes this video and gets inspired like I did from other YouTubers and decides that they want to build a system like this. It's my hope. But without further ado, sayonara, adios, au revoir, hasta la vista, das vidania, auf Wiedersehen, ciao, and goodbye. Have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next one. Later.